Watoto wangu mimi mama yenu, sina nguvu tena.
Okay, it's recording.
Nice.
Okay, hi everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
So today is a special episode. We are here with Rehema, and we are gonna ask you some questions and ask one another questions as we usually do. Mm-hmm. But this is a part of the Festival des Gestes et de la Recherche that takes place in a few days. We are recording late November. Yeah. Want to add anything?
No. Let's go.
All right. Rehema, you can say no, but do you want to maybe introduce yourself a little?
Yeah, I can. So, hi everyone.
Hi.
My name is Rehema Chachage. I'm a visual artist, originally from Tanzania, but currently I'm doing a PhD in Vienna, so I'm kind of based between the two worlds. And yeah, I'm like visual artist, but also I'm a researcher. I write, I sometimes teach and mentor, and I also I want to say curates, but it's like organized for the Dar es Salaam art scene especially. Uh-huh. So yeah, it's kind of a curatorial hat, but like in a bit of a more unconventional, hat, if I can, yeah.
Okay, so many things.
Yeah.
But a few hats.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Okay, and how would you present yourself on a racial, social racial level? How would you describe yourself?
I would describe myself as Black and as African. Yeah. I don't know if I guess I also wear the hat of a diasporic African, but I think because I'm still in denial of the fact that I live in the diaspora. Like I still feel like I live in Tanzania, so I don't know. Right now, I keep it at Black and African. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let's just present ourselves in English to Rehema, maybe. If that's okay with you. So I would present myself as a queer and Afro-descendant because I don't like the word mixed because it has it has a historical value in terms of colonizing. And I'm an artist here in Grenoble, mostly performance, and we will get into that later, I guess.
And I would present myself as a butch lesbian from Algerian and Italian descent. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically that's it.
Yeah, and I would say I'm a North African man, or like Amazigh man, and I am assigned Arab, but I'm not Arab. Yeah.
Yeah. How you're being perceived and how you define yourself.
Especially. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so let's dive into the first question that we have, unless you have something else to add about. No? Okay, so let's dive into it. So one quote that I love about theory is from Bell Hooks. She said, it was in, I believe, 1990. I came to theory because I was hurting. The pain within me was so intense that I could not go on living. I came to theory desperate, wanting to comprehend, to grasp what was happening around and within me. Most importantly, I wanted to make the hurt go away. I saw in theory then a location for healing. So this is from Theory as Liberatory Practice of bell hooks. And the question that I'm asking to all of us, including me, is the practice of research or the consumption of theory a form of care to you? Do you want to start? I see you.
Yeah, okay.
You are ready. I can see it.
So yeah, I think the question is pretty tricky to me because instinctively taking care of myself will mean soothing something in myself. So being still and at peace, slowing the pace. And I don't know if it's the case because the practice of research inherently brings new questions always. So it can be pretty desiring and sometimes bring more pain, anger, or sadness, especially when you work on intimate matters. So to me, it's more like a way to understand the world, give structure, and share things, I guess. But as a collective practice, I think it can definitely help us build things together and feel less lonely.
All right. So more as a building practice than a healing practice.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I can go next. So I struggle a lot with conventional terminologies, like within academic practice. So terminologies like theory or research, like I don't know, like I struggle with them because of what they tell me I should be doing or how they require me to enter them as terminologies. I think the practice of research and the practice of care might go hand in hand within my artistic practice, only because I think I'm really at a point where I'm really rethinking what researching and what a research methodology looks like. So I research intergenerationally through the matriline, through conversations with my mother and my grandmother. And I've refused the term research subject, for example, because I cannot see my mom or my grandmother as a subject. So this is where research becomes very difficult for me. And we don't interview per se. Research is embodied. As far as I know, research is embodied. It's through existing with people, it's through observation of things that happen around you, and through finding meaning in them that you are also researching. And I think that goes hand in hand with the practice, right? An artistic practice is also very embodied. The material, the work itself tells you how you should proceed, how you should mold the material, and etc. And so for me, I think artistic research, when thought of conventionally, I always struggle with the terminology. I always say for me, togetherness is both a thesis, or like being together or being with, is both a thesis and a methodology. It's like it's a research methodology, even though I think conventional research would refuse it.
Yes.
As a methodology. So.
But why? I mean, methodology is usually white, right? It's dictated by white scholars.
Yeah, exactly. So, but because of the way that I research, I think care goes hand in hand in it, and not care always as self-care, but also care for those that you research with.
Yeah, totally.
Care enough to humanize them and to cite them, to remember to cite them as part of your practice, because if you cite them, then you ensure that they're never erased from history, for example. To care for that which you're researching enough to not just use it as a decoration, like to throw it as a cool terminology, but to really practice that which you say you're researching. So so I think care and research goes hand in hand in that way, which is
Oh my God, it's beautiful. Yeah. I'm glad we asked that question.
Really meaningful, yeah.
And erasure made me think of your work, Amar.
Yeah. So what was the question again?
You see, that's why so many people like him. So the question was, is the practice of research or the consumption of theory a form of care to you?
Okay. I would agree with what was said before, but I don't think it's... I wouldn't really consider it as a form of care, because I also work a lot on like a very violent history. So I don't think that learning what they did to my ancestors, our ancestors, is really helping me to. Is not really helping me. But I was listening to something once, and it's there's a researcher called Rachida Brahim, and she wrote a book called The Race Kills Twice, La race tue deux fois. And it's like a history of racist crimes in France. And she said like it's very awful and like it's very hard subject, but also like kind of how she did this research. It helped her understand things. And I think maybe not by doing it, but afterwards, like you feel like you like said something and you let something come out of you by like writing it or by performing it.
Yeah, it's like a puzzle and you collect the pieces.
Like not the process of doing it, but like afterwards.
Yeah, I guess that's the care that extends beyond the self. So it might be very hurtful to you personally, or like very traumatic to your body, but then it is it's out of, I guess, the care for that which you're researching. That I guess care can be such a loose word.
Yes,
if we extend it beyond the personal.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, to me personally, I feel like the more research I made on violent subjects, the more desensitized I became. And in a sense, it became easier for me to read about it because I was I can say that I'm racially traumatized by what I have overcome here in France as a person of African descent. So to me, it was a way of looking at my individual experience through the lens of the collective experience. And to me, it's a form of care because my individual experience doesn't speak for all experiences. And so it does help me to, step back and look at all the pain, but also the beauty and the happiness and the collective care practices that were created, and it gives me perspective as for the future. So it gives me hope. But it's true that it's very hard. And some books that are in my library I cannot read, and I used to read about slavery and just cry and cry and cry and just feel very like it was in my body. I could feel it, and just reading some lines about like how many people died during this or during that, it was very painful. So
but I don't want to extend this topic of care, but I remember there was a guest that came to our PhD once, and he was just like, I don't want to do stories about slavery anymore. And I think, anyway, my point is this. I think there's also something subversive that can happen within a research process, where within all that pain that we encounter in the archives and in the text and etc., one can, and that's why I really like Saidiya Hartman's work, and I find it so powerful because of that. because there's a way that she takes a moment to imagine that one tender moment that could have happened, for example, between two enslaved subjects that maybe formed a friendship or a love connection or something. And it's a work of imagination, but I wonder if like there's space for imagining like small, tender, nice moments within this like super painful material that we are consuming through our research that could offer us a little bit of relief from this like super traumatic
Exactly.
experience of the archive anyway. But I just remembered this as you were saying, because I also have done a lot of like painful research, and the reason why I started visiting the matriline and especially looking at moments of coming together and caring for one another, or like rare like moments of rearing children or loving or showing love and etc. is because of exactly that like pain and joy are so always next to each other somehow, but because of the way that history is structured, unfortunately, it's always the pain that we encounter in these archives, and never those joyous moments or tender moments or loving moments.
And it does participate in the fact that we are being dehumanized. Being just subjects of violence, that dehumanizes us.
And it does affect the way that that practice happens. Sometimes within like Black artists of color, African artists, like I think sometimes we even blindly repeat this violence through showing these images without like sort of also questioning why we are doing it, or saying at what point do I now bring dignity to this figure that was displayed in this particular way within the archive, and now I'm bringing this figure to my practice. Like, how am I rethinking these violent practices of preserving history and writing history? So
Amar has a practice. He's very, very, very diligent. I don't know if the word is exact, but diligent about not reenacting violence.
Amazing. It's so important.
It's true.
It is. And very hard as well.
It's very hard.
It's inherited. The way we look at history and the way we look at ourselves.
But this is why I think, I don't remember who said, but like there's people who argue that especially if you're not researching from a personal place, like you're not researching people who are directly connected to you within a lineage, then you have to humanize these people in that way. Like you look at an archival subject or a historic, like a subject within a subject. There I go with those terminologies, but
Coming back, creeping on you.
It's creeping back. But you look at a person that you're encountering in history and then just tell yourself, this person is either is a grandparent or this person is a friend, is somehow connected to me. Humanize that person, and that is kind of the only way that you can now care for that person. Back to care, you can care for that person enough to not repeat the violences in which that person has been recounted in history. Yeah.
I think it's always also the question that when you talk about this violence, about like, how do you talk about it? Because it happened, so you have to like mention it, but you don't want also like reenact this violence. I think it's like always a slippery thing to do to talk about this.
Maybe also shifting the gaze of the violent, because yes, the violence was enacted, but the perpetrators, the historical archives don't really tilt the violence or face the violence towards the perpetrators. It's always shown on the victims. So maybe like changing the perspective of like
It may be a
Actually,
question.
who is the animal here? Who is the problematic person here in what we're encountering? I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like art does that.
Yeah.
Like social science or like history doesn't do it. But
doesn't.
art does that.
Art can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can do that.
Yeah, it can be. It could be a question of tools. Yeah, actually, like Audre Lorde and the question of the master's tool. Yeah, like
The what?
the master's tools will never dismantle
The
master's house.
With the master's tools.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, yeah. This quote. This quote. Yep. Shall we move on to the next question?
Yeah.
What kind of archives do you work with and why?
I can start. So right now I'm working on a Algerian singer. She was called Kadoudja, and she sing in Paris Café Concert, which is like the ancestors of the cabaret. And she was a singer in that period, and she was quite famous during that period. But once she passed, like at the end of the 19th century, nobody talked about her anymore. And so I wrote a thesis on Algerian music, and I discovered about this singer. And I was really, really interested in her because like we don't talk about her never. And so I did researches about that, but like at some point I realized like I was just reading like newspapers or old scores. It's just like the archives of the white, like like we don't really exist in that archives, and it's very violent. Like you have just like the white gaze, but you don't really have access to like what she was thinking or what she was just experiencing as a Algerian in a very racist France in a colonial period. So I think it's always like I don't really like archives that much anymore. I think.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
I don't think they're not really true in the end.
What is truth? Exactly.
What are our stories?
Yeah, true.
Yeah. I also hate archives.
Yeah.
Like I really hate archives. I hate the experience of entering them, the ritual of wearing the gloves and like being like super sanitized, the bookings 6 months in advance, like all that stuff. I really don't like. And I also hate especially that I have to come to Europe to access my history. This is like so problematic and it's so difficult. I come from a background of working mostly from the continent or researching mostly from the continent. And the unfortunate truth is that archives are stolen. Yes, we have only documentation of some things, but it's so little compared to what's out here in Europe, in the US, and basically in the global north. And so for me, I think, again, like I keep feeling like I keep saying rethinking so much, but like I've also had to rethink where one can access an archive or what an archive can be. When I am in Tanzania and I look at, for example, a street name, I look at that as a form of archive because a street name can say a lot about what happened in an area. I look at the traces left in a land like boulders and whatever as forms of archive also because I think they are documenting a lot. We have species that are not natively ours, but they're growing on our land. I think that is also a form of archive. I look at the body as an archive. So my grandmother, for me, is an archival institution. Yeah. That's why I converse with her a lot. Songs, also, I look at it as traces, like especially children's songs. I've listened to children's songs. We were singing them as young and they were very innocent. And then as a grown-up, I listen to them and I'm like, wait, what was this about? Like, for example, there's a song that talks about, tells of a lion. I've used it in one of my works, actually, of a lion that has basically eaten everyone in a family. So basically a mother is singing to her children like to my children, this is your mother. I no longer have the strength to fight the lion. The lion is stronger than me. It has eaten your father, your mother, your brother, your sister. So now run. And then as kids, at that moment when you say now run, we all run and we go hide. And it's innocent and we're playing. And then as a grown-up, you listen to it and you say, wait a minute. What was this about? Who is this lion who is eating families to disappearance? And so, like, I think these are like really interesting forms of archive. Like, I don't know, like you can look at them as traces and like, yeah, this is I guess this has been my process, piecing things together and like trying to imagine what could they mean, because that is also the reality of where I come from. History is accessed only through traces and piecing things together. So, like I find archives in many things too. Yeah. To say it simply.
Yeah. It's a little bit of an eco-feminist approach because it's a living archive. A living research. I mean, we have to find other terms to use, but really like.
Yeah, I was thinking about like, I don't really consider all these things archives because I think like archives are dead and they're classified and all these songs, all these histories, they're still alive because they're still embodied or like saying.
And I think there wasn't one single person, or I guess one group of people who said, okay, let's collect all this and call them histories, because I imagine, or whatever song I hear now, it probably evolves. Like I feel like even these things, they evolve with histories as history evolves. So it's probably not the same song that was sung by children 5 generations back. But then at some point, children decided to make this song the way it is. So like, it's really
interesting. The way archives can evolve actually.
Well, I mean, I don't work with archives per se. I don't archive. I collect things mostly. I collect waters. That's one of the things that I do. When I go to a lake or when I go to a sea, to an ocean, I will collect the waters that I'm in contact with, because I love the theory. Well, this is theory of Astrida Neimanis, bodies of water, because it does work well with my way of seeing things and people who are interconnected. We are all connected. And so I do collect material things such as waters or leaves and vegetal, and then I also collect my dreams and I collect talkings. I record things. And I consider those as archives, but those are living archives, but of the past, And so, I would consider that archives.
I think that's really interesting because I guess we always talk about history as a far-off thing, but I think history is always in production. And so it's nice that you're also creating history as you're archiving. I was going to ask, actually. So I have a very problematic relationship with the term archive. But it's funny because I think my practice also, like yours, Aïda, is in a way a process of archiving that which has been handed down to me intergenerationally. And I wonder if like what would be an alternative term we can use instead of an archive? Because every time I say archive, I go back to this place that you were describing, and I'm just like, oh my God, no! Like I don't want my practice to be that place. Like, I don't know. Anyway, maybe we don't have to think of it now, but it would be so nice to think of it. It's
nice to think of it.
Think of alternative words we can use instead of this weird terminology.
And Bell Hooks, in the quote that I was in the essay that she wrote, that I quoted earlier, she said that I was seeing that so many individual Black writers and thinkers, and we could as artists, we're dying without having protected their legacy. This is one thing that she said. We know that the imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy is real, but then we think, how can we keep those legacies in this world? It's not meant for us.
Yeah. I think your way of thinking and working is really interesting because it's kind like you create your own archives.
The term currently named archives, but to be revisited.
Collections. For the collectivity. So I like this. This way of thinking things. And as for me, I work on everyday life archives, like internet materials and occurrences that could seem random at first sight, and glimpses of memories and so on. And I like to bring them to oral poetry or narration, because like you said, the orality makes this like kind of immortal. So it changes, it evolves with time and things, but you can never steal this, and it's very important to me. There is a desire for me in my work to soothe others and create spaces with those archives. Create like an invitation, to take a moment and experiment a form of nostalgia together. So it's about history, actually, and stories, of course. And currently I'm interested in the figure of the Rail, who is in Arabic poetry a wanderer and a poet who expresses a sense of nostalgia and longing with themes like love and separation and exile and so on. So it's a semi-nomadic poet. And also I wish I could sing, because I'm really interested with the work of Houria Aïchi. I don't know if you know about her. She's a singer, an Algerian singer, but anthropologist as well. And she makes this huge collects of songs from the Ores, and she then re-sing it on stage. And I think it could be seen as archive. But her work is really, really interesting to me.
So why do we need to share stories? What drives us to share our stories? We partially answered that, but maybe we can add something to it. I can start.
Yeah, you can start.
What drives me is that as much as I feel connected to the writings and to the art that I've seen, and as I said, it does heal me because I feel like part of a collective. I feel like my story needs to be another story that is there to be listened to, or to be read, to be seen. We need more and more stories. We are creating as we talk right now, as we're doing right now, but also as we create art, we are creating history. And so it's important to, take space, to not shatter and stay where we are supposed to stay. That's why it's important for me to share.
I think I agree with this. I think it's like for me, I see it as a form of refusal. refusing, to be erased because we have historically been erased, or parts of our stories anyway have been erased, and like only other parts, like, which we talked about, the traumatic parts sometimes have been told, but even those, we don't know to what extent. Is also a way of refusing, I guess, the colonial project, which again we sometimes talk about it as the thing in history, but like I think it's still enduring, and the colonial project has always been a project of saying one race is more superior than others. One story is more superior than others. One culture is more superior than others. And that is like still something we see perpetrated every day. So refusing that project by saying, actually, no, other stories are also just as important. And yeah, I guess a decolonial project instead of a colonial project. So yeah, refusing the colonial project altogether. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I agree with what you said about refusing to be erased. My Algerian father committed suicide a few years ago, and I felt like he left us, all he left us was short notes and a lot of silence. And I felt that it was not just because he was not a very talkative person, but really because our own histories as a child of immigrants are silenced. I mean, I think he could have talked a lot more and without ever telling actually the alienation and the brutality of growing up in a country that humiliated him and his family and colonized his ancestors and mine, actually. Because those are stories we are not supposed to tell, as you said. And yeah, I think I feel like I have a responsibility in collecting and assembling the few narratives I can access, but also, and maybe more importantly, showing the absence and the void, the lacks in transmissions, and yeah. And because I think it says that sadly the stories of those who came before me have already been partly erased, but I and others will make sure that the layers of memories we can still access will be shown, actually.
I guess it's also a form of repair, because I think repair has become also such a big terminology in decolonial practice, but I think this is is repair, which is also very necessary. Sorry.
Maybe a form of care.
Also a form of care, but
I was thinking it, but I didn't say
it. Yeah, I don't have a lot to add to what you said because I think it's very true. And yeah, I think I'm also driven by like repair and yeah, like taking all that we have left before it's erased, and yeah, trying to like keep alive what was tried to be erased or to be killed. Because yeah, I think our histories, like it's really like present in the French discourse to say like Algeria had no history before the French.
Yeah.
And it's really not true. And yeah, like to fight back against that and say that no, we have a history that is like 1,000 years old. And,
yeah.
I
mean, humankind came from Africa, so there's so much to say about that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, just to say that it's like also humanization to say that we are like we have history, we have like romance, we have friendships, like any other people.
Mm-hmm.
The next question is, what does home mean to you? And I was thinking of another question, and so I got lost in my thoughts. I was just thinking of ancestry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because of archives, because I'm a descendant of slaves, and I don't know from where. I know that they came back to Guinea and Conakry with Johnson, the name Johnson, but I don't know from where. And the name is it's so popular. Yeah, there are so many people with that name that I decided I would not research it, because I didn't want to. And so it made me think what you just said. It made me think about the fact that I don't even have archives. Per se. That's maybe why I'm just realizing now, as we were talking, that maybe that's why I'm creating those archives. It's because I don't have archives.
Like you want to leave a trace.
I feel like it's important. I know that my grandmother, she's now deceased, and she was the last one to bear the name Johnson. And I'm just very sad because she wouldn't talk about anything, just like you said. And it was very important to me to honor, but this is spiritual, but to honor their lives as well. So that's what I was thinking about.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's very not funny, but it's
Very funny.
It's very funny. No, it's not funny. But it's it's very interesting because we're sitting next to each other, and I guess we share this ancestry to the continent. The difference being I can trace my ancestry quite a few generations back, because I am like natively Tanzanian from there. I mean, if there was any movement that happened, I'm guessing it wouldn't be from so far off, even though, yes, bodies were taken from my country and etc. We have a Pan-African ritual or practice that happens when children are born. And in that moment when the umbilical cord falls off, sometimes even the placenta, basically what happens is it's kind of buried somewhere within the home space. It's not, I don't know if it's something that's contemporarily being practiced so much, but it's something that was practiced a lot historically. And when you bury the umbilical cord or even the placenta of the baby around the house, that is kind of your way to remind them where home is, to feel grounded within the home space. So I always call home a gut feeling. Like I feel like home is a gut feeling. It's something you carry here. It's not even where the heart is. It's something you feel like in your gut. But I guess that comes with the privilege of also knowing, of this feeling of knowing where you're grounded or where your umbilical cord is buried. While there are others that carry this history of not knowing where their umbilical cords are buried. Which is it's a tougher reality to contend with. But I don't know if the question is where home is, but I feel like what home is for me is a gut feeling, a feeling I carry in my gut anywhere I go, or everywhere I go.
Incredible. Thank you.
Yeah. Beautiful, yeah.
And you're right, it's very hard not knowing where your home is.
Yeah.
Or not having that gut feeling.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk as well about being displaced. Because, there is this question of exile. There is this question for me of lost space. Which comes with home. In Arabic, the word bait both means house, bedroom, shelter, but also country, from a dialect to another, and poetic verse. And this identification of verse with home is, I think, interesting and comforting, but also suggests the illusory nature of substituting the place with language. And poet Mahmoud Darwish, I don't know if you know about him, he dealt a lot with this issue since he was a Palestinian national poet. And his poems explore homeland, suffering, dispossession, and exile. And I wanted to read one for you if you're okay with that.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
I come from there. I come from there, and I have memories, born as mortals are. I have a mother and a house with many windows. I have brothers, friends, and a prison cell with a cold window. Mine is a wave, snatched by seagulls. I have my own view and an extra blade of grace. Mine is a moon at the far edge of the world, and the bounty of birds, and the immortal olive tree. I walked this land before the swords, turned its living body into a laden table. I come from there. I render the sky unto her mother, when the sky weeps for her mother, and I weep to make myself known to a returning cloud. I learned all the words worthy of the court of blood, so that I could break the rule. I learned all the words and broke them up to make a single word, homeland.
Thank you.
Yeah. So sadly, I think it's currently a matter. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, for reading. Do you want to add something about home? No, I think that was. What about you?
Yeah, I think as a descendant of migrants, like I also relate to that poem, but like where is our home? Because like I'm mixed, so I'm from north of Algeria and south of Spain, and I was born in France. Like, where is my home? Where do we belong? Because I think it's a hard question, and I don't really know. Yeah, we before this episode we recorded something about
Leaving.
Yeah, leaving.
Yeah.
Finding home, actually. If you think about it, it's about finding a home.
Yeah.
Where to? Where do we belong?
Yeah, right.
It's a question that we ask ourselves pretty often since we started the podcast.
Yeah. Because if I go back to Algeria and to the village of my grandparents, I'm not Algerian enough. And in France, I'm too Algerian. In Spain, I don't know what. So I think it's
the multiracial struggle.
Yeah, like multiracial plus the migrants thing. So yeah.
I mean, that's partly why our podcast is called Zone Flow, which means blurred zones, but also twilight zones. It's because of us. I mean, and for me, I mean, what was the question? I asked it, but I forgot. What does home mean to me? To me, home is a quest, and home is a relationship. Home is connection. I really loved what you said about a gut feeling. So I cannot wait to feel that gut feeling and to settle into a relationship or into friendships, plural, into a community, into a place where I feel like I can belong. Or else I will make the space for my identity and my
it's a lifetime quest.
I feel like for some people it's a lifelong quest. Indeed.
And maybe it also is a concept that needs. Oh, sorry. I wanted to say maybe it's a concept that needs to embrace some level of fluidity.
Yeah.
Because I think the idea of home is also like it goes hand in hand with the static, idea. Oh, I'm going home. Yeah. It's a static thing that you always follow. But I wonder if there's room for fluidity in the idea of a home. And if it's fluid, then you can create it somewhere, anywhere. Yeah.
And you can bring it with you.
And you can carry it with you.
Carry it.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
It makes me think of what you said the other day about building a house. And I think maybe building a house makes us feel more at home than being actually in a house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I said it the other day because it's connected to the performance I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah, like it's really, really, I think this is also a kind of, I don't know if it's also a Pan-African practice. I might be lying, but I know, I know historically it is a practice of building homes whenever you're welcoming someone in the community. Building is a communal practice, like it's an event. Everyone comes and builds with you and for you as a way of welcoming you. But then I think what's important is the building site than the building that comes out of it. Because the building site is the space where banter happens, where debates happen, where bonding happens, ideologies are formed and exchanged. And so that is the building. And that is more important than the actual house that stands in the end. And I think another interesting thing about these structures that I'm talking about that were built communally, they're mud structures. So the key ingredient for them to stay standing is community. Because they always have to constantly be cared for and repaired. So the minute community is not there to help you care and repair for the structures, then the house falls. There's no house standing anymore. So I think that's, there's interesting... Yeah, it's interesting you brought it up because I think it's very relevant to what we're talking about.
Very clever. Shall we do some maybe reading or listening?
Yeah.
2 down, 1 up, 2 down. 2 strands of ukindu remain on the left. 2 down, 1 up, 2 down. 3 strands of ukindu remain on the right. Left to right, right to left. 2 down.
Seja viri, kweja kimu. Seja viri.
Down.
Shaja vibaje viri, vya masala, mkono wa kumoso. Seja viri, kweja
Shusha
kimu.
viwili.
Seja viri.
Bakisha kimoja.
Vibaje vitatu vya
Mbili
masala,
chini.
mishale viri.
Chana mbili
Funya
za
kuume,
ukindu
tonja
zinabaki
kumoso.
kulia.
Funya kumoso, tonja
Shusha viwili. Bakisha kimoja. Shusha viwili. Chana 3 za ukindu zinabaki kulia. Kushoto kwenda kulia. Kulia kwenda kushoto. I'm gonna read. 2 down, 1 up, 2 down. Shode births Koko Orupa, who births Bibi Mkunde, who births Mama Demere, who births me. 2 down, 1 up, 2 down. Shode becomes my daughter, Orupa becomes my niece, and Mkunde becomes my sister. 2 down, 1 up, 2 down. A pattern emerges meticulously weaved on a long okili. 2 down, 1 up, 2 down. A thread of history is weaved and carried across from generation to generation. We begin with a call to come together. around shareable moments and situations, within specific home places, and around specific rituals. Neither of us had to put forward this call. Instinctually, we've always known how to keep an ear out for it, and once heard, we've always known when and how to respond to it. This has been our quotidian ritual for maintaining bonds within the family and within communities. So here we are, 3 generations of women, and by extension, an entire matrilineage responding to the call. We gather here not to ask questions or to define an object or subject, not to mark out an area or a field, not to define borders around objects and scenes and situations and archives, and not even to break borders between and across fields and disciplines. Rather, we come together to be curious, to share wonder, to muse on possibility, and to follow on the generosity of the call. The works that we create, which extend across different media, bringing our voices together in a chorus that emerge from our conversations around autonomy, memory, and history. I'm going to repeat that because I think I read it wrong. The offerings which we create extend across different media, bringing our voices together in a chorus that emerge from our conversations around autonomy, memory, and history. In some cases, our chorus chatters into troubled and problematic histories, yet we refuse to center the entire conversation within the folds of these problematics. History has many times done that already. Instead, we choose to navigate the other side of the strait by exploring the different stories as well as the many possibilities offered and encountered in the rare but very special moments of family coming together. Drawing from Keguro Macharia's idea around the method of gathering and on gathering as a method, our offering came to be via processes which utilize togetherness both as a methodology and a thesis. Informing the chorus and the call to come together in the chorus, much is challenged. Here, there is no researcher-subject duality, no border which marks where one voice ends and where another begins, and no attempts at hyper-theorizing, hyper-contextualizing, and or hyper-hypothesizing. Here, there's only the process of following the generosity of the call, and in turn, an invitation for you to extend similarly generous calls. We gather together, we gather.